What's up, guys? I'm Nobody Special, and I am on location here with Sachs Realty at his studio in Maryland with Todd Sachs. Todd, how you doing today, sir?
Doing great, buddy. It's always a pleasure, Jack, to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I love your studio. I love coming down here. Todd's actually pretty close to me geographically, so I told him, hey, anytime you want to do some videos together, give me a ring. I can be down there in a few hours. So here we are today, and we just had an interesting conversation a few moments ago when I wish the camera was rolling, but it wasn't. And we were talking about real estate in the Northeast. Now, I've had our buddy Travis on my channel a lot of times now, and we've talked a lot about the new inventory, about the overbuilding that's going on in the Sun Belt. But you're here in Maryland. You specialize in the Northeast, totally different market than what's going on in the Sun Belt. And I've noticed in a lot of the economic data that comes out that prices are holding up pretty well in the Northeast. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing as you're moving houses, as you're doing these listings here in Maryland. What are you seeing out there?
We have probably some of the best paying jobs in the country. We're close to D.C., right? That makes sense. So the proximity to the job market, the government job market, it doesn't seem like they're laying anybody off, and people make pretty good money. That helps to keep prices up, but we're still not seeing, Jack. I mean, obviously, we slowed down just like everybody else has. But like you said, we're not inundated with new home construction like the Sun Belt or Phoenix market or Nevada, some of the areas in Nevada, North Carolina. So we're not seeing the massive overbuilding here, and a lot of it is because of the regulations. Our proximity here in Maryland, we have a lot of waterways. We have areas that are, even though Maryland it's not a tiny state, but we have about 6 million people. Besides the beltways, the DC Beltway and the Baltimore Beltway, if you go across the Bay Bridge, for instance, there's no jobs. If you go up to Garrett County, the mountains, there's no jobs. So we're seeing a dense concentration in about 9 markets here that we specialize in, and there's very little new construction. Now we're waiting for the baby boomers to sell or people to move up or move down. We're still not seeing what we witnessed in prior to June of 2022, since they started really jacking up interest rates, and of course mortgage rates followed. We can't think that that is not going to eventually catch up to us, because I think it will. Back in the GFC, we were one of the hardest states to fall, and we were one of the slowest states to come back, where you had whole streets in Vegas that were decimated, just vacant neighborhoods. They even came back quicker than we did. If you figure the peak was in 2006, the height of the crash was 2008, 2009. If you bought in 2006, it could have been till 2022 before you could sell your house, depending on what your price point was that you bought. That much time had lapsed before you could actually sell your house for what you paid for it buying in 2006.
Now, what do you think drove that slow recovery here versus some of the other markets?
I think it was one of the facts is we grew probably quicker than a lot of the other markets. Our job market is so strong. It doesn't, just having good paying jobs doesn't give people good common sense. The more we make, the more we spend. I mean, we know that, right? Deficit spending. Who knows that better than being close to DC? Why not deficit spend? I would go into people's homes and they would have these big 8,000 square foot houses with furniture missing in 3 or 4 rooms. And I think that we got hit hard. Prices tumbled.
Tell me you bought too much house without actually telling me. Years
exactly
later,
right.
You still haven't filled every room, or you got patio furniture in the kitchen. I saw that a lot after the GFC.
Or they never put the deck on the back. They bought a new home, and they still have that safety railing up off of the sliding glass door 10 years later. They never put a deck on the house.
You talked about a recent listing of yours. Could you tell me a little bit about that one for the people watching at home? Because I remember being blown away by some of the things you said about that listing in particular.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's what we're seeing is that if it's a decent listing, you put it on the market. In this particular situation, I showed it 2 times, and It was an in-person showing, where the listing agent was required to be there, and where the buyer's agent brought their buyers. I showed it twice and had 2 offers, and we were under contract within 24 hours. And it's a very clean deal, no inspections, and a couple weeks settlement. And it was priced well, and it was a decent house. But still, it just shows the amount of overconfidence in this market that we still have, that we can see these kinds of things where people are like, I'll just buy it. I don't want an inspection, I'll just buy it. I don't need one. I want the house. And they're still willing to take these risks.
So 2 showings, 2 offers, under contract in 24 hours, no inspections.
No inspections.
No inspections. That just boggles the mind that somebody would buy a house without an inspection. Who knows what could be lurking within the walls. Now, how did that go relative to asking price? You closed pretty quick there.
Yeah, well, it hasn't closed yet. It's still in contingency on financing. So, but it was everything and more that the seller wanted. So it was a clean deal. It was a fast deal.
We're still going above asking, and we're still selling in just days. We're still under contract in just a few days. And I sold my first house in New Jersey back in 2017. I was under contract about 12 hours after the open house started. We were under contract for tens of thousands above asking price. So maybe not that radical still, but still going on here in the Northeast. So while we're hearing about overbuild and all these new homes and the new developments like our buddy Travis has been highlighting on his channel, we don't have that here in the Northeast. Is it just an inventory problem? Is that why this is still going on, you think?
Well, I think there are multiple things. People are still making money. And so I don't think that we've caught up to that yet. I think the hangover hasn't officially caught up, and that's just because, and we've said this before, I mean, there was a lot of stimulus, and people think of stimulus, and they comment, and they say, well, that's ridiculous. You keep talking about stimulus. I got 2 checks or 3 checks or whatever, and it was a couple $1,000. It's not that. It's the stimulus was to the businesses. They haven't failed yet. And I say yet because consumer debt is catching up the consumers, and they're pulling back from their spending. But we haven't seen the companies going out of business yet. And partially is because a lot of those companies took PPP and probably didn't even need it. And it flushed their bank accounts. So they're able to pay for their employees. They're able to staff up for the demand, but the demand's backing off. So now what do? Corporate America will just lay off, and we see that now. The small businesses will continue to overpay the employees despite not making the revenue, and they'll do that till their business goes down the tubes. They will be behind the helm of the ship, and they will wait until that ship is completely submerged with water. They won't use their own, they'll just keep sliding their own paychecks in the drawer, and they'll continue to pay their people because they don't want to let them go in hopes that it will turn around. And I believe that we are not going to see a turnaround.
You made a great point there about the stimulus, and maybe a few people only got the 1 check for $600, probably single people, unmarried. I remember in 2022 and 2021, I just kept getting a few $100s a month from the government in my checking account. It was the child care tax credit. And I remember thinking to myself how stupid this was. My income being what it is, my wife's income being what it is, the place I lived. I'm not loaded. I'm not the richest guy in the world, but I do all right. And they were giving me money for nothing. And I remember saying, this is crazy. This is insane that they're doing this. And you made the point about PPP. And, we just talked on your channel about Cross River Bank and all the fake loans it looks like they gave out. That money started chasing Mercedes. That money started chasing houses. It started chasing Gucci bags. A lot of it didn't go to keeping people working. It was just pigging out.
People were getting paid to not work. Yep. I mean, people were making $700 federal unemployment, I think, for 6 or 7 weeks, over top of their state unemployment.
Plus the state unemployment, plus the stimmy checks,
they
plus the child care tax credits.
Try and get your employees back to work. They were opening things back up again, and people were like, I can't even get my employee to come back to work. And the only thing they had to say really was, I'm just not comfortable coming back. I have a at-risk parent, or I have a at-risk, high risk, I'm high risk, or my kid's high risk, or whatever. I'm not comfortable being around people. I'm not coming back to work. The problem, Jack, is that, and this is a really big problem in my opinion, is we've really destroyed this pandemic has done a lot of damage to our society. And people don't even want to get out of their houses anymore. I mean, we're starting to see a big mental health issue show up, worse than we've ever had. And I think part of it is because people are isolating themselves. They're not getting together. There is no camaraderie. There's no teamwork. We're missing that, right? And we were meant to do a lot of things in life alone. Survival's not one of them.
And we're not having babies either. The birth rate in this country is falling at an alarming rate. We hear about the statistics in Asia and the collapsing birth rates in South Korea, Japan, and China all the time. The same thing is happening here in the States and in Europe. We just have immigration offsetting it. But we're not having babies. And if we're not having babies, we're not starting households. And you better believe that's going to show up in the housing market down the road too.
I mean, it's terrible where we are right now. So, and that's why people aren't having kids, because they can't afford it. They know. They're hoping that they will eventually, but it's sad.
They're missing out, I think. If you're not having kids, you are missing out. I'm a father. Nothing beats it. My idea of a stimulus program, instead of giving people $10,000 to go buy their first house, give them a Barry White album and a bottle of Jack Daniels. That'll solve the problem, sure enough. Todd, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Man. Thank you for hosting us in your studio.
Absolutely. We're going to have more sets coming up here soon, so maybe the next time you come, we'll be in our Tuesday Night Live set, where it's kind of like a news station. It's going to be like ESPN Zone. We're really looking forward to it. Always a pleasure, and you're welcome anytime.
Thanks a lot. All right, everybody, that's Todd Sachs from Sachs Realty. I'm going to put a link to his channel down in the description below. I highly recommend you check that one out. And until next time, live small and dream big.